Backstage chaos explodes when Taehyung accuses Jungkook of betrayal while a live mic captures every word. What really happened that night? You liar. You planned this, didn't you? Taehyung's voice cracked through the dimly lit hallway, sharp as shattered glass. Jungkook froze mid-step. His name had been echoing through the crowd moments earlier, cheers roaring as BTS exited the main stage of the Global Music Excellence Awards. But now, all that faded into a single sound, the weight of betrayal vibrating through Taehyung's voice. Behind them, the red velvet curtain still swayed slightly from their exit. Stagehands whispered hurriedly, cameras still rolling. Some pointed aimlessly. But none of that mattered anymore. The microphone clip to Taehyung's custom Dior blazer was still on, and it was recording everything. Jungkook turned slowly. His features were a storm, confused, stunned, and trying desperately not to erupt. "What are you talking about?" he said, voice low, calculated, trying not to escalate. Taehyung stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Don't act like you don't know. You told them about the deal, about Paris, about my solo project." Jungkook's heart punched against his ribs. "I didn't." "Yes, you did," Taehyung spat. "Hybe didn't just guess that I was negotiating behind their backs." Silence. Somewhere in the background, the show was still continuing. Announcements, flashing lights, the muffled sound of laughter from another green room. But between the two men, everything had gone dead cold. Jimin had just walked out behind them, but paused, sensing something wrong. His face shifted instantly from relaxed to alert. He stepped halfway into the hallway but didn't interrupt, just watched. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. "You think I'd do that to you? After everything? After all the nights we've spent practicing, writing, fixing each other's messes?" Taehyung's jaw tightened. "Don't you dare bring up the past like it still means something." A crew member passed by, wide-eyed, and quietly turned around the moment he registered the tension. The assistant director motioned to kill the audio feed too late. The control room had heard everything. Jungkook's voice dropped, trembling slightly. Not out of fear, but disbelief. "You're not even giving me a chance to explain." "Then explain." Taehyung's eyes didn't move. He stood still, but his breathing was uneven. The way his fingers tapped against his hip betrayed the hurricane inside him. "I didn't say a word about Paris," Jungkook said finally. "But I did hear what you said to Minjin about me. About how I cling to you. About how I don't deserve this group anymore." Taehyung's mouth parted slightly. The flash of guilt, or was it regret, lasted no more than a second. Jungkook's eyes hardened. "So maybe the real question is, who betrayed who first?" In that moment, the air collapsed between them. Jimin stepped forward now, but still kept his voice soft. "Guys, this isn't the place." But it was already too late. A sound engineer peeked from the curtain and whispered something to the producer. Panic flickered across the producer's face. He motioned toward the soundboard. "Kill the feed. Cut their mics. Now." But backstage, the damage had already been done. Taehyung exhaled, eyes glistening with rage. "Don't you dare flip this on me." Jungkook turned away for a second, as if gathering strength. When he looked back, the wall of composure he'd built all night had cracked. "You've been shutting me out for months," Jungkook said. "Ever since the fashion deal came in. Ever since your solo track hit #1. You stopped replying. You stopped talking. And when I tried to help, you made me feel like a burden." Taehyung blinked, jaw tight. "You want to accuse me of betrayal?" Jungkook scoffed. "Fine, but let's not pretend you haven't been betraying us first." Taehyung took a step back. As if struck by something invisible, Jimin moved between them, cautiously, like someone stepping into the middle of a fire. "Stop! Both of you! This is not who we are!" Neither answered. From the monitor across the hallway, the show transitioned into the next performance. The screen flickered with lights, the cheers of fans, but inside that corridor, there was only silence. The silence of friendships fracturing. The silence of too many things said. The silence of the entire room realizing that this wasn't just a fight, it was the start of something breaking. Behind them, a stagehand leaned closer to another. "Wasn't the mic still on?" The other nodded slowly, pale. "It went live. The control room caught everything." The sound engineer cursed under his breath. "And it was patched into the global stream." No one dared to speak louder. Inside, Taehyung's shoulders tensed like stone. "From now on, Jungkook, don't talk to me unless it's on camera." And with that, he turned and walked down the hallway, never looking back. Jungkook stood frozen for a moment. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. Then he took one step, then another away from Taehyung, away from whatever just shattered. Jimin looked between them, eyes filled with the kind of pain only someone who knew both hearts could carry. And as Jungkook disappeared into the dressing room, the echo of Taehyung's accusation still rang in the air like a live wire. That night, the hashtags exploded. Taehyung vs Jungkook. Mix still on. Backstage betrayal. But none of them knew the real war had only just begun. Not the fans. Not the staff. Not even the members themselves. Because when trust breaks behind closed doors, it doesn't stay hidden for long. And now, the world had heard it all. The morning after the awards show didn't begin with sunlight. It began with chaos. Jungkook woke up to a cacophony of vibrating notifications that made his nightstand tremble like an aftershock. The moment he opened his phone, a blood-freezing wave of panic overtook him. The headlines were everywhere, splashed across Korean media, global fan sites, and even Western entertainment outlets. Taehyung calls out Jungkook as a traitor mic accidentally left on. The fight BTS didn't want you to see. Broken bonds backstage, the moment the world heard it all. His fingers trembled as he scrolled. There were actual clips leaked from backstage surveillance footage, unofficial camera angles, voiceovers from drama channels, slowed down moments capturing his face just as Taehyung hurled the word traitor. Some armies were crying. Some were outraged. Others didn't know what to believe. But the worst were the ones who called him a snake, who accused him of sabotaging Taehyung out of jealousy. The internet had already split into factions, those defending Jungkook and those sharpening their knives. A soft knock on the hotel room door pulled him back to reality. "Hyung?" he asked cautiously, voice rough from sleep and stress. It was Jimin. Jungkook didn't say a word. He opened the door and let him in. Jimin entered quietly, his eyes already heavy with a kind of exhaustion that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying the weight of two friends destroying each other in real time. "Don't look at me like that," Jungkook mumbled, rubbing his forehead as he sat on the edge of the bed. "Like what? Like I'm guilty, I'm not." "I didn't say you were," Jimin replied softly, but there was a crack in his voice. "But the mic was live, Jungkook. The world heard all of it. They didn't hear everything, but enough." Jungkook snapped his gaze toward him. "Enough to bury me?" Jimin exhaled, walking toward the window. The city below looked serene, untouched by the digital wildfire raging across social media. Enough to make people question who we are to each other. Jungkook rose from the bed. His voice dropped into something deeper. "Do you question who I am, Hyung?" Jimin turned slowly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Jungkook felt like a younger version of himself. Vulnerable, uncertain, desperate for someone to just believe in him. "I just want to understand what really happened," Jimin said, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook stared at the floor. "I didn't tell Hybe about Paris. I didn't say a word about the fashion deal. But I overheard Taehyung talking about me like I was a parasite. He said I was clinging, that I needed him more than he ever needed me." Jimin's breath hitched. "I didn't mean to bring it up that way. But when he accused me," Jungkook's voice trailed off. "Something in me broke." Silence. A long, aching silence. Jimin sat beside him. "This isn't just about the mic. This isn't just about Paris. This has been building for months." "I know," Jungkook whispered. There was another knock. This time, it was Namjoon. His presence filled the room like a looming tide. The leader of BTS had a way of carrying silence louder than anyone else. "Everyone's looking for answers," he said, not bothering to sit. "Hybe wants us all in the conference room in an hour. PR is in crisis mode." "Let me guess," Jungkook said bitterly. "They want me to apologize." Namjoon didn't flinch. "They want damage control." "I didn't start this," Jungkook barked. "No, but you didn't stop it either," Namjoon snapped back. "You could have walked away." Jungkook laughed a humorless, guttural sound. "Like you've never let it boil over, Hyung." Namjoon took a step closer. "You're not the victim here, Jungkook, and neither is Taehyung. The real victim is BTS, the trust we spent a decade building. That hit hard. Too hard. I don't even know who we are anymore," Jungkook muttered. Namjoon gave him a look that wasn't anger, but pure sadness. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. The meeting room was frigid, both in temperature and mood. The executives were seated in a half-moon shape, eyes guarded, lips pursed. On the far end, Taehyung sat, arms folded tightly across his chest. Wearing sunglasses inside, Jungkook's heart pounded when their eyes didn't meet. Bang Si-hyuk entered last, silence following him like a shadow. He didn't sit. "Do any of you realize what you've done?" he asked calmly. No one answered. He turned to Taehyung. "You accused Jungkook of betrayal, in public, during a live broadcast." "I didn't know the mic was on," Taehyung replied flatly. "That's not the issue," Bang countered. "Why did you say it at all?" Taehyung didn't answer. Then Bang looked at Jungkook. "And do you deny leaking the Paris contract?" Jungkook stood. "Absolutely. I never said a word about that deal. If you want my phone, take it. If you want to trace my email logs, go ahead. I've got nothing to hide." The room grew tense. The executives whispered among themselves. Bang Si-hyuk nodded slowly. "Then we'll conduct an internal audit. If you're innocent, you'll be cleared." Taehyung scoffed. "And what about the things he did say?" Jungkook looked at him then. Really looked at him. "I said them because you hurt me. You think I wasn't hurt too?" Taehyung snapped. "You called me a traitor because you felt like one." "Enough." Bang Si-hyuk's voice silenced the room. "We are not doing this here. You two either solve this privately or you step away publicly. But what you will not do is destroy everything we've built because of ego." The room froze. His words were absolute. Then he left. That night, the company released a vague statement, calling it a misunderstanding, assuring fans that the members were working through personal issues. But ARMY wasn't stupid. They noticed Taehyung unfollowed Jungkook on Instagram. They saw the lack of eye contact during the backstage footage at a different event just hours later. They heard the tension in Taehyung's voice when he thanked the fans but didn't mention Jungkook once. The comments were brutal. Some begged for peace. Others picked sides like it was a war. One fan wrote, "We waited years to see OT7 again. And now, it's falling apart in front of our eyes." Another said, "Taehyung was right. Jungkook's always been jealous." And then there were the photos. A journalist leaked a blurry image of Jungkook crying inside a black van, his face buried in his hands. The headline read, "Breakdown after betrayal, Jungkook spotted in tears post-meeting." But none of them knew the real reason he cried. Because it wasn't the hate that broke him. It was the silence from Taehyung's side. No messages, no calls, not even a why. Jungkook hadn't realized how much of his daily life was tied to that voice, that laugh, that quiet reassurance after a long rehearsal, that unspoken rhythm they had where one would start humming and the other would finish it without a word. He thought they had been more than bandmates, more than brothers. But now, it felt like nothing. 1 week passed, then 2. The investigation concluded Jungkook had nothing to do with the leak. But by then, public damage had taken root. Taehyung released a cryptic tweet. It simply read, "Sometimes silence is louder than truth." And the world exploded again. Jungkook called Jimin that night. "I don't know what that means," he said, pacing. "I don't think he knows either," Jimin replied softly. "Then why is he saying it?" Jimin hesitated. "Because he's hurting too." Jungkook slumped to the floor. "Then why won't he say that?" "Because he doesn't know how." They sat in silence together over the phone, like two satellites mourning the sun that used to hold them in orbit. That night, Jungkook wrote a song. It wasn't polished. It wasn't even good. But it was raw. And it ended with a single line that made even him stop and blink away tears. "I thought you were my gravity. Turns out you were the wind." Taehyung heard the demo weeks later. Jimin had passed it along. He didn't say a word when the melody began, but his hand tightened around the headphone cable. The lyrics were soft, but they hit like hammers. Every note was a memory, every pause a wound. He remembered a night 3 years ago, sitting on a rooftop with Jungkook, trading dreams under city lights. He remembered the laughter, the promises, the way they swore nothing would change them. But everything had. His fingers hovered over his phone. He wanted to call. He almost did. But his pride was louder. so he turned off the demo and went back to scrolling through posts that called Jungkook a traitor. It was easier than admitting he missed him. It was easier than forgiving. And so, the silence continued. But this time, even Jimin wasn't sure if they'd ever come back from it. The producer's voice crackled through the earpiece. 5 minutes until we go live. Everyone in position. The studio lights dimmed just slightly, casting elongated shadows on the floor as makeup artists did last-minute touch-ups. The atmosphere felt wrong. It wasn't the usual pre-interview excitement, the kind that jittered through the air like soda fizz. No, this felt clinical tense, like everyone was holding their breath and waiting for something to detonate. The set for One World interview had been specially modified. It wasn't just any talk show. It was the first time BTS would be appearing as a full group since the explosive backstage fallout had rocked their fanbase and the industry at large. Taehyung sat at the far end of the semicircle, a polished white chair between him and Jungkook. Both pretended it didn't exist. Jungkook was staring down at the small card in his hands, pretending to read the pre-approved talking points, but his mind was racing. Taehyung's silence in the room was not quiet. It was loud, oppressive, drowning out every other sound. Across from them, Namjoon adjusted his blazer and checked the monitor that showed the live countdown. Yoongi leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable, while Jin and J-Hope shared glances that screamed of unspoken worries. Only Jimin moved between the two younger members, trying to bridge an invisible chasm that had only deepened with time. Producer Kim's voice crackled again. Do not veer off script. If they bring up the fight, redirect gently. We cannot afford another public incident. The stage manager gestured a countdown with her fingers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The host, Mina Park, smiled into the camera, her voice a perfect blend of warmth and command. Welcome to a very special edition of One World Interview. Tonight, we're joined by the global phenomenon BTS. The applause sign flashed behind the cameras. The claps were dutiful, planted. Mina's eyes sparkled, but there was a weight behind them. She knew what the audience was really waiting for. Thank you all for being here, she began. It's been a long time since we've seen all 7 of you together. How does it feel? Namjoon took the lead as always. It's good. We've all been busy individually, but coming back together, there's a comfort in that. Mina turned her smile to Jungkook. You've been in the spotlight a lot recently. How have you been holding up? Jungkook's lips twitched. I've been reflecting, taking time to think, making music. His voice was steady, but something in his eyes flickered. A crack, a tremor. Taehyung looked away. Jimin chimed in quickly. We've all been there for each other. Even when things are quiet publicly, behind the scenes, we're still family. Mina nodded. That's good to hear. The fans have been worried, especially after... The teleprompter glitched for half a second. Mina's eyes widened for a blink, then recovered. After the whirlwind of attention following the awards show, silence. Yoongi shifted in his seat. J-Hope smiled tightly. Mina continued, voice cautious. Can you speak to that moment? What happened backstage? Or would you prefer not to? Namjoon was supposed to redirect. That was the plan. But Jungkook spoke first. It happened. The room froze. The producer scrambled in the booth. One of the assistants dropped a clipboard. Jungkook's voice didn't tremble. I said things I regret, but I didn't lie. Taehyung's head turned slowly toward him, face neutral but eyes cold. Mina blinked. So, it wasn't just a misunderstanding? Jungkook looked at Taehyung, then back at Mina. It wasn't. It was real. We fought. He called me a traitor. The mic picked it up, and honestly, maybe the world deserved to hear it. Jimin inhaled sharply. Jungkook. No. Jungkook cut him off. I'm tired of pretending. Taehyung's voice cut through like steel. Then tell them the rest. Jungkook turned to face him fully. What else should I say, Taehyung? That you've been shutting me out? That you'd rather let strangers on Twitter defend you than text me back? Taehyung leaned forward. You think this is about texts? It's not. It's about you acting like I never mattered the moment your solo success exploded. The audience had gone silent. Mina didn't dare interrupt. Taehyung's voice dropped. You were always chasing me. I needed space. Not because I didn't care, but because you never gave me room to breathe. Jungkook laughed bitterly. So that makes me a burden? A leech? What am I, Taehyung? Your shadow? Taehyung's jaw tightened. You cross lines. You don't even see it. Jungkook rose from his chair. The producer's voice was panicking in the earpieces. Cut to commercial, cut to... But the cameras kept rolling. Jungkook's voice was raw. You needed space? Fine. But don't rewrite history. You used to need me. When the world scared you, when the lights were too bright, when you couldn't find your voice, I was there. Don't pretend like I don't remember. Taehyung stood too. I'm not pretending. I'm growing. And maybe the real problem is that you hate I did it without needing you anymore. The words hit like bullets. Jungkook flinched. Jimin stood up immediately between them. This isn't the place, he whispered, begging now. But it was too late. Because Jungkook's voice cracked for the first time. I never wanted you to need me. I just wanted to matter. The set fell into silence. Real, paralyzing silence. And then, something shocking happened. Jin stood, the eldest, always the jokester, the peacekeeper, the one who never involved himself in drama. He stood, and he looked at both of them with the pain of someone watching his family collapse. You both matter. To all of us. But you're forgetting something. It's not just your fight. It's ours too. The fans, the members, we've all been holding our breath, waiting for this to stop, waiting for you to remember why we started. Jungkook's lips trembled. Taehyung's expression finally cracked just slightly. Yoongi looked down, his fingers folded tightly. Namjoon didn't speak. Mina, ever the professional, leaned forward and said softly, Maybe this is the place. Maybe the world needed to see this. To remember you're not just idols, you're human. And families fight. Taehyung sat back down slowly. Jungkook did too. For a while, no one spoke. Then Taehyung said quietly without looking at him, I didn't mean to say it like that. About you not mattering. Jungkook didn't look at him either. And I didn't mean to scream it in front of the world. Jimin leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. Relief wasn't full, but it was enough to breathe again. Mina smiled gently. Thank you for being honest. The rest of the interview returned to lighter topics. Comebacks, tour plans, charity work. But something had shifted. Not fully healed, not mended, but real. The episode aired live. The ratings were the highest in the show's history. Comments flooded the screen. Thousands of fans cried. Some turned away, but most stayed. Not because the group was perfect, but because finally they were real again. And real was what they had been missing all along. That night, Jungkook sat on the hotel balcony, head tilted back at the stars. Behind him, the door slid open. Taehyung stepped out, silent. They didn't speak. Not for a long time. But the silence was no longer a wall. It was a bridge. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something new. The storm wasn't over. It had only gone quiet. For weeks, the world believed the broadcasted interview had closed the chapter. The moment Jungkook and Taehyung sat down and bled their truths on live television, there was a collective sigh from the fandom. ARMY thought the wounds were healing, that the storm had passed. But silence often holds what screaming never could. And silence, in the wrong hands, becomes a weapon. The morning it happened was deceptively ordinary. It started with a notification. A fan page tweeted a link with the caption, "You didn't hear the whole thing. Here's what they cut." Attached was a 3-minute video. It had no logos, no production, watermark. Just static, grainy footage from a backstage camera. One that had no business being online. Within seconds, it was everywhere. The tape showed more than just the screaming. It showed the beginning. It showed Taehyung crying alone before Jungkook entered the hallway. It captured the moment Taehyung received a message on his phone, visibly shaken. He paced, ran a trembling hand through his hair, slammed his fist into the wall. And then he said something. Not to Jungkook, not to anyone, but the mic caught it. She promised it wouldn't leak. She swore it wasn't about Jungkook. That line detonated across the internet like fire on dry grass. Because suddenly, the narrative flipped. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a fight. It was about a secret Taehyung was trying to protect. Something or someone had lied to him. Armies went into detective mode. Every frame of the video was dissected. Who was she? What was the promise? Why did Taehyung look betrayed before Jungkook even walked into the room? Hybe released a rushed statement claiming the video was taken out of context. But by then, it was too late. Fans noticed the timestamp on the security footage. It was 20 minutes before the incident that was broadcast, which meant Taehyung had been misled into thinking Jungkook had betrayed him, that his outburst had been fueled by someone else's manipulation. And the worst part? Jungkook saw it too. He watched the clip in his studio, frozen, fists clenched around the edges of his desk. The video played again and again, that one line echoing louder each time. She swore it wasn't about Jungkook. He sat there for hours, jaw clenched, tears stuck in his throat like broken glass. He didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the idea that Taehyung had believed it so easily. Taehyung found out through a text from Jimin. The message was short. "You need to see this. It's everywhere." Taehyung tapped the link. He sat on the floor of his apartment, barefoot, still wearing the oversized black hoodie Jungkook had gifted him last year. He watched himself pacing, crying, mumbling words he never thought would be recorded. He remembered that day, remembered the panic, the cold certainty that his career, his project, everything was slipping through his hands. He remembered the message, the woman, the call. And then, like ice spreading under his skin, he realized the weight of what he'd done. He had looked Jungkook in the eyes and screamed betrayal, all while standing on a lie. His hand trembled as he picked up his phone, but he didn't dial. He stared at Jungkook's name in his contacts, then put the phone down. That night, Hybe held an emergency meeting. None of the members spoke. Their faces said enough. Bang Sahyuk walked in, unshaven, his eyes heavy with disappointment and something else, fatigue. He didn't sit. He didn't yell. He just spoke. "This wasn't supposed to happen, but it has. And now you have two choices." They listened. "You can let the internet decide the truth, or you can speak it yourselves." No one moved. Then Jin looked up. "Who leaked it?" Bang Sahyuk hesitated. "We don't know yet." Yoongi raised an eyebrow. "You expect us to believe that?" "There's a trail," Bang admitted. "But it doesn't lead to press. It leads to someone closer." They all felt it. A shift in the room. Taehyung's stomach dropped. The woman. He knew now. She hadn't just betrayed him. She'd made sure he burned with her. Jungkook didn't speak once during the meeting. Afterward, as the members scattered out in silence, Jungkook stood up last. He caught Taehyung's eyes for a moment and walked past him. No words, just that same ache in his gaze. Taehyung almost stopped him, but almost didn't mean anything anymore. The fans were already taking sides again. Justice for Jungkook. Protect Taehyung. Who is she? Fan theories flooded every platform. Some thought it was a stylist. Others believed it was a journalist. Some blamed Hybe itself, accusing the label of manufacturing drama to control headlines. But amidst the chaos, one post surfaced that no one expected. A voice recording. Anonymous. It was a woman's voice. Clear. Confident. "I told him Jungkook leaked it because I had to. Taehyung would never have listened otherwise. He was too blind. He trusted Jungkook more than anyone. I had to break that." The voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Calculated. Eerily so. The fandom erupted. But for Taehyung, it was like someone had slit his chest open and exposed his ribs to the world. He couldn't sleep that night. He barely breathed. The guilt devoured him. So he did what he hadn't done in weeks. He went to Jungkook's door. It was nearly 2 a.m. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Then the door opened. Jungkook stood there, shirtless, eyes red, music still playing faintly from his studio. They stared at each other. Taehyung swallowed. "I know now." Jungkook didn't blink. "I know you didn't betray me. Nothing. And I know I hurt you. Worse than anyone else ever could." Jungkook leaned on the doorframe. "Why did you believe her?" Taehyung's voice cracked. "Because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of losing you." Jungkook finally looked up. "Then why did you throw me away first?" Taehyung stepped inside. "Because I was angry. Because I didn't want to believe you would succeed without me. Because somewhere inside, I was jealous." There it was. The truth. Ugly. Raw. Honest. Jungkook turned off the music. The room fell into silence, except for their breaths. Taehyung stepped closer. "She played us. She knew how much we trusted each other. She knew breaking us would be easy if she got me to doubt you. Jungkook laughed. Cold. And she was right. I'm sorry. Jungkook looked at him. Really looked. You humiliated me. I know. You left me to burn. I know. I needed you to fight for me. Taehyung closed the space between them. Then let me start now. Taehyung closed the space between them. Jungkook didn't speak for a long time. Then, finally, his voice broke. I still don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me try. They stood there for what felt like an eternity. The silence was heavy, but it no longer crushed. Eventually, Jungkook moved aside. Come in. Taehyung did. They didn't hug. They didn't cry, but they sat, side by side, until the sun rose. And for the first time in weeks, the silence between them wasn't a punishment. It was a beginning. The room was stark, white, and far too quiet. No fan chants, no flashing lights, no music. Just dozens of cameras mounted on tripods, pointed like rifles. Behind them, reporters murmured like bees in a jar, restless, hungry, waiting to sink their teeth into whatever they could twist into scandal. Jungkook sat on the left. Taehyung sat on the right. Between them was a single bottle of water, untouched. The backdrop bore the clean, polished logo of Hybe Entertainment, flanked by a muted banner that read, Statement to Media regarding recent events. It was corporate and hollow and did nothing to reflect the storm underneath. The press conference was supposed to be an olive branch, a chance for Jungkook and Taehyung to clarify misunderstandings, to restore public trust. At least, that was how the board phrased it. But this wasn't about misunderstandings anymore. It was about truth, about rot beneath the polished marble. And someone Jungkook didn't yet know who was still hiding something. He could feel it. The press director adjusted his mic and gave a stiff nod. We will now begin the conference. Please address all questions respectfully. We request journalists to refrain from speculative or sensitive personal inquiries, which of course meant they would do the opposite. The first journalist stood. She was from K News Global. Elegant, precise. First of all, thank you both for being here. Jungkook-si, Taehyung-si, can you share how your relationship has evolved since the broadcasted incident? Jungkook took the mic first. There was a lot of hurt on both sides. Miscommunication and things that were said in the heat of pain. We're still working through it. Taehyung followed. Some wounds don't heal overnight, but I think it's more important that we're trying. The answers were safe, polished, but the tension between them was still palpable. Every time their arms brushed on the table, every time their eyes met and darted away, the cameras captured it. Another journalist jumped in. Taehyung-si, is it true you were misled by someone close to you? There are rumors about a woman who manipulated information. Can you confirm? Taehyung looked straight ahead. I trusted the wrong person. That's all I'll say. Jungkook's jaw tightened. He hadn't asked Taehyung who she was. Part of him didn't want to know. The betrayal had left enough scars already. The next question came quickly, like a blade in velvet. Jungkook-si, it's now public knowledge that the security tape was leaked from inside Hybe. Do you believe someone in the company set you up? Murmurs exploded around the room. The press director paled. Cameras zoomed in. Jungkook stared at the reporter, then answered, yes. Gasps, shuffling papers, fingers flying across laptop keyboards. I believe someone inside Hybe wanted to drive a wedge between us, he continued, and I believe it worked. The press director stepped forward. We ask that you refrain. It's okay, Taehyung said, calm but firm. Let him talk. The journalist pressed further. Do you have names? Evidence? Jungkook leaned forward. What I have is a folder, with call logs, message backups, metadata. Everything that proves the leak didn't just happen. It was coordinated. From inside. The room detonated. Another journalist from Dispatch raised his hand but didn't wait to be called. Can you share who gave you the folder? Jungkook didn't hesitate. A staff member. Former. Now Taehyung turned toward him, alarm flickering in his eyes. Jungkook continued. She approached me last week, said she had proved someone from the executive tier ordered the surveillance footage to be pulled, trimmed, and passed to a third party. She said she was told to keep it anonymous, but couldn't stay silent after watching us destroy each other. Taehyung gripped the edge of the table. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. Jungkook looked at him now. "Because I wasn't sure if you'd still believe me." That silence was worse than anything the press could ask. The next reporter stepped up. "Taehyung-si, do you regret how you reacted backstage?" Taehyung's voice was dry. "Every day. Do you regret calling Jungkook a traitor?" Taehyung didn't flinch. "Yes, but not because it hurt me. Because I believed a lie about someone I considered closer than blood." The room quieted for a moment. Then, another reporter broke the pause. "Jungkook-si, what's your next move?" He looked at the cameras directly now. The confidence in his voice wasn't loud, it was lethal. "I'm going to release the files." Everyone gasped. Hybe's PR team scrambled behind the scenes. The press director's mic turned off, turned on again. Chaos. "I've already sent it to my lawyer," Jungkook said. "And the legal team has cleared it. This isn't just about me and Taehyung anymore. It's about trust. It's about an entire system that let this happen." Taehyung's heart hammered in his chest. He leaned toward Jungkook, voice low. "You're going to war." "I know. Are you ready?" "I've never been more ready." The press conference ended in a scramble. Security had to escort the boys out. Fans outside chanted both their names, some crying, others shouting. Inside the car, neither spoke for several blocks. Then Taehyung turned to Jungkook. "What's in the file?" "Not just the leak," Jungkook said. "There are emails, screenshots, timelines. They show how this entire campaign was started. The delay in PR response, the way the mic audio was left uncensored. It wasn't carelessness. It was calculated." "Why?" Jungkook didn't look at him. "To fracture the group. Maybe to make you easier to control. Maybe to isolate me." Taehyung's voice broke. "Who would do that?" Jungkook pulled out his phone, tapped a file. The screen lit up. Taehyung stared and went still. "No," he breathed. Jungkook nodded grimly. He was the one who approved the audio release, the one who kept feeding her information. Taehyung looked like he was going to be sick. "It was our manager." Jungkook's voice was bitter. "The one who was supposed to protect us." That night, the files were published on a private website, verified, legal, time-stamped. The fandom imploded. Hybe issued a midnight press release. An internal investigation was launched, and the manager in question had been suspended. But it was too late. The damage was done. Jungkook and Taehyung, once the soul of harmony, had been torn apart not by ego but by a system that fed on silence. Yet now, that silence had ended. And in its place, a dangerous new clarity. They weren't fighting each other anymore. Now, they were fighting together. And the industry? It wasn't ready for what came next. Taehyung's fingers hovered over the message for the third time that morning. "Back off. You don't know who you're messing with. Let Jungkook be the hero. Stay quiet, or we'll make sure you never walk on stage again." No sender ID, no signature. Just cold, calculated words on a screen that shouldn't have reached him, but did. He stared at the words longer than he should have. There was something sterile in the phrasing, something unnervingly professional, like whoever sent it didn't need to threaten with rage. They threatened with power. And power was always quieter than people expected. But it killed just the same. A knock pulled him from his trance. Jimin entered the apartment without waiting. "I saw the articles," Jimin said without greeting. "I saw the screenshots. And I know that look." Taehyung pocketed the phone and said nothing. Jimin narrowed his eyes. "Don't lie to me. You're scared." "I'm not scared," Taehyung said flatly. "You're shaking." Taehyung looked down at his hands. Damn it. He hadn't even noticed. Jimin walked closer, voice quieter. "Did someone threaten you?" Silence. Jimin's face darkened. "Taehyung, they want me to back off," Taehyung finally admitted. "They're fine letting Jungkook be the martyr, as long as I stay out of the light. You think they'd go public?" I think they'd bury me quietly." Jimin took a deep breath, then turned toward the door. "I'm telling Jungkook." "No," Taehyung snapped. "Yes," Jimin said firmly. "He needs to know." Taehyung stood. "If you tell him, he'll go nuclear. You've seen what he's like when he's cornered. He doesn't care about damage, only justice." Jimin's jaw tensed. Maybe justice is the only way left. Taehyung turned to the window, watching Seoul move in distant silence. "We were trained to survive storms, Jimin. But we were never trained for betrayal from the inside. You're not alone, Jimin said softly. Even if it feels like it. That night, Jungkook knocked on his door. Not called. Not messaged. Knocked. When Taehyung opened it, he saw the fury in his eyes before he spoke. Why didn't you tell me? Jimin, of course. Taehyung stepped back. Because I knew how you'd react. You thought I'd sabotage the entire company? Burn every contract? I thought you'd forget to protect yourself. Jungkook stepped inside, shutting the door behind him harder than necessary. Did you reply to the message? No. Did you trace it? I tried. It bounced through a proxy, probably from inside. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. Then let them try. Let them come for both of us. This isn't a movie, Jungkook, Taehyung snapped. We're not invincible. One scandal, one misstep, and we lose everything. Jungkook's voice dropped. We already lost everything the moment we started letting them control us like puppets. Taehyung's jaw clenched. We trusted the wrong people. That's on us. No, Jungkook said quietly. It's on him. Taehyung turned slowly. Who? Jungkook pulled out his phone and tossed it onto the table. A photo filled the screen. Manager. CEO. The man who'd guided them through international tours. Through album chaos. Through press dramas. The man they called Hyung behind closed doors. He's the one who orchestrated the leak, Jungkook said. He gave the footage. He fed her lies. He's been working both sides for years. Taehyung sat down heavily. Why? Because he was promised a promotion into Hybe's global board. And we were, what? Sacrifices? We were leverage. Silence fell like a curtain between them. Taehyung spoke first. What do we do? Jungkook's eyes burned. We go see him. The next morning, they stood outside Manager Seo's private office. He didn't expect them. Not like this. Not together. When he opened the door and saw their faces, something shifted in his expression, an almost imperceptible flicker of regret, or perhaps annoyance. You shouldn't be here, he said calmly. Jungkook stepped in. Why'd you do it? Seo exhaled and leaned against the desk. Because the industry doesn't reward loyalty. It rewards strategy. And you two were easy targets. Taehyung's voice trembled. We trusted you. That was your mistake, Seo said without flinching. Is this revenge? Jungkook asked. For what? Fame you couldn't have? No, Seo said, then paused. It's correction. I watched you two become uncontrollable. Walking brands. Bigger than the system that made you. That scared them. They needed a reset. Taehyung stared at him. You broke us on purpose. Seo's eyes were cold. Because you were untouchable, and that makes people dangerous. Jungkook lunged. Taehyung stopped him, barely. Seo didn't blink. You'll be replaced, he said. The industry moves on. No, Jungkook growled. We are the industry. Later, outside the building, Jungkook leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Taehyung didn't speak for a long time. Then, quietly, what do we do now? Jungkook looked up at the sky. We go louder. Within hours, a live stream was scheduled. Unscripted. Unfiltered. The fandom gathered in millions. When the screen lit up, Jungkook and Taehyung sat side by side. There were no cue cards. No handlers. Just truth. They spoke about the betrayal, the manipulation, the system. They spoke about Manager Seo. And then Jungkook said it. We are not perfect, but we are not silent. Not anymore. Taehyung added. And if speaking truth costs us everything, then maybe it's time to build something better. The comments exploded, but amidst them, one stood out. A message. From a verified journalist. I have something. About Seo. Meet me. This goes deeper than you know. The next chapter wasn't done. They had only just cracked the surface. And the ghosts from their past? They were clawing their way out. The cafe was discreet, tucked between a record shop and a narrow art gallery that hadn't had a real customer in months. Jungkook and Taehyung entered separately, hoodies pulled low, sunglasses barely disguising the tension on their faces. The journalist was already seated in the back corner. She was younger than they expected, early 30s perhaps, but her eyes carried weight far beyond her years. When she looked at them, It wasn't with awe or fandom, it was with the sharp calculation of someone who already knew how many landmines lay buried beneath the surface. "You said you had something," Jungkook said without sitting. The journalist nodded once. "Sit down. I won't say it twice." They obeyed. Taehyung crossed his arms. "We're risking everything by being here." She leaned forward. "No, you already lost everything. What I have might explain why." Jungkook's fists clenched under the table. "Then talk." She slid a black USB stick onto the table. "This contains transcripts, recordings, scanned pages from a restricted Hybe archive." Taehyung narrowed his eyes. "Why would you have access to that?" "Because my brother used to be part of Hybe's legal department. He quit, moved to Canada. But before he left, he copied files he thought would be important someday." Jungkook snatched the drive. "What's on it?" "Interviews. From when you were trainees. Internal assessments, psychological profiles, and one in particular that was hidden." The silence became suffocating. She continued. "It's about a session with you, Jungkook, conducted privately by an internal evaluator. Not the public training manager, not even Bang Si-hyuk, someone else." Jungkook's eyes darkened. "I don't remember any private evaluation." "You wouldn't. You were 13. You thought it was part of the vocal assessment." Taehyung leaned forward. "What did they ask him?" "They asked about emotional triggers, weaknesses, who he depended on most, who he feared disappointing." Jungkook's breath caught in his chest. "And he said your name, Taehyung," she said softly. "He said you were his anchor, that if you ever turned on him, he'd feel lost." Taehyung froze. Jungkook's voice cracked. "Why does this matter now?" The journalist's jaw tightened. "Because someone used that file to engineer the fracture between you, to weaponize what you said as a child." She slid a photo across the table. It was a printed email thread. The header read, Kim Taehyung, instability threat. From SCO at Hybe. Kar to Ops. Strategiatiba. Kir. Taehyung's hands began to shake. Jungkook's lips parted, but no words came. The journalist whispered, "They've been building this for years." Outside, traffic moved, oblivious. But inside, their entire foundation cracked. Taehyung looked at Jungkook, horror dawning in his eyes. "They planned to break us apart from the start." "Not from the start," she corrected. "From the moment you two got too powerful. From the moment they realized Army loved your bond more than any brand." Jungkook stood suddenly, pacing, the USB stick clenched tight in his hand. This isn't just betrayal. This is manipulation." Taehyung was still staring at the printed email, as if trying to erase it with his eyes. "I believed it," he whispered. "Every rumor, every doubt they fed me. I believed it all." Jungkook looked at him. "Because they made sure you would." They left the cafe without speaking. Back at Jungkook's studio, they locked the door. Jimin called twice. Namjoon texted once. Neither answered. The room was dim, filled only with the hum of Jungkook's computer as he loaded the files. Taehyung stood behind him, unmoving, arms crossed so tightly his knuckles went pale. The first recording played. A boy's voice, soft, nervous. "I guess I rely on Taehyung a lot. He makes me feel like I'm not alone." Taehyung sat down, slowly. The next question came. "And if he turned on you?" Pause. "I don't know. I think I'd feel like I didn't exist anymore." Taehyung covered his face with both hands. Jungkook didn't turn around. When the recording ended, neither said a word for several minutes. Then Taehyung whispered, "They took the most innocent part of you and used it to turn you into my enemy." Jungkook's voice was hollow. "And you let them." The words stung, but Taehyung didn't deny it. "I know." A beat passed. Then Jungkook stood and turned toward him. "I need to tell the others." Taehyung looked up. "They won't believe it. Then we show them." The next evening, they gathered in the private dorm space they hadn't used in years. Jin arrived first, suspicious but calm. Yoongi followed, saying nothing but watching everything. Jimin sat beside Namjoon, who had the look of a man preparing for battle. Jungkook placed the USB on the table. "What is this?" Namjoon asked. "The truth," Taehyung said simply. They played the recordings, showed the emails, let the silence fill the gaps that no one dared speak. When it ended, Jin leaned back in his chair. "They evaluated us like we were assets." "Because we are," Yoongi said bitterly. To them, we always have been, Namjoon exhaled. And Manager CO was the link between operations and media, Jungkook confirmed. He used our own memories against us, leaked pieces of that file to experts online to stir narrative. Jimin looked devastated. That explains all the fan theories, the ones that twisted everything between you two, Taehyung whispered. They weren't fan theories. They were planted. Namjoon ran a hand through his hair. If we go public with this, we expose Hybe, Jungkook said, and we free ourselves. Yoongi looked up. Or we set fire to everything we've ever built. Taehyung looked each of them in the eye. Then let it burn. We'll build again. But this time, on our own terms. That night, they released a joint statement. Not from PR. Not from management. From BTS. They released the files, the recordings, the timeline, and a video. A single shot. Jungkook and Taehyung sitting together, saying only this. We are not afraid. Not of the past. Not of the truth. Not anymore. The video trended worldwide in less than 3 minutes. But somewhere deep within the company, another file opened. Labeled, Phase 2A Suppression Protocol. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The early morning rain fell like soft needles, tapping against the windows of the old rehearsal studio. It was the first place they'd ever practiced as 7. The mirrors still held fingerprints from when they were kids, voices cracking and feet stumbling. Jungkook stood near the back, watching the reflection of his own stillness. He hadn't told the others he came here. He needed quiet. He needed space from the storm they had just thrown themselves into. Last night's joint statement had set the industry on fire. Their legal team's inbox crashed within an hour. Hybe had gone eerily silent. Not a single response. Not even a denial. Which meant only one thing. It wasn't confusion. It was calculation. They were planning their counterstrike. Taehyung entered the studio without warning. No umbrella. His hoodie soaked. Drops falling onto the wooden floor. He didn't say anything at first. Just leaned against the wall, breathing like he'd been running. Jin called me, he said. He said someone from the old trainee cohort has been trying to reach out. Jungkook didn't move. Who? Taehyung hesitated. You remember Kang Il-ho? The name hit like a low drum beat beneath the ribs. Of course he remembered.